Yo, what's good, YouTube? This is Jay from T&J, and welcome back to the Charlotte 49ers Dynasty. This will be the finale episode of this series. I want to thank you guys for all the support in this series. It has been an excellent series. We did things that I did not expect us to do. One thing that I didn't expect us to do is just win right away. And, there was one rebuilding year. It was season 1 where we did struggle. But then after that, we kind of hit the ground running. And I didn't expect to be here just because, we made some changes to make it more difficult, like controlling the defensive tackle, for example. That makes the game a lot more difficult because you're no longer controlling the middle linebacker or safety and covering the middle of the field. I've always stuck to one guy. I've never switched on defense, really. I think in the last couple series, and that's really helped. But it's kind of weird to see something like this happen, already in season number 4. I do think we did get lucky. I think a lot of teams in the ACC definitely, had a very down year, and it kind of helped us, especially Miami. Miami was such a good team. They lost their starting quarterback in the beginning of the year, lost 4 games, and then they beat us in the ACC championship. If they would have had that quarterback the entire year, there's a chance that, Miami could have been in the playoffs, and they would have been a very troublesome team to deal with. Now, our team was interesting, though. We won on defense alone. Our offense wasn't really that great. We started out the year with Devin Parker at quarterback, and he did all right, but I was expecting him to be a guy that was safe with the football, but we still found ourselves turning the ball over. And then Jeffrey Johnson came in, and he actually did pretty well. And the thing with him is that, some throws are just inaccurate. It's just way off. But for the most part, he did pretty well. He's not going to be a guy that's going to put up huge numbers, but I think he did a good job. The real man of the hour was Terrence Pitt Howard, and he was really, really good. He's the best back in the nation, I think, this year. I don't think he would have won the Heisman, but he ran for 1,500 yards. He's a power back. He's unlike any back I have had in the fact that, 6.5 yards per carry is a huge number for a guy that only has 83 speed. The guy is just amazing. And, he's going to be one of those guys that I carry over into our Madden series when we start that. That's still, a whole summer away. But, he's going to be a guy that I'm going to carry over. I'm going to carry over a couple of guys in this series as well into that draft classes. But, this was a whole lot of fun. I loved running the ball with a power back. It's something that I haven't done in the past. I've had power backs that have speed before, but not ones that are just strictly power backs. That was a whole lot of fun. So looking at the rest of our guys here, Ncaa had 400 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns. He was the next guy to really be in line to get carries, but Terrence Pitt Howard never gave that thrown away. Now, receiving-wise, Devon Cash was the first 1,000-yard receiver in this series this season, and he led the team in catches for the second straight year, and also led us in touchdowns, which actually ended up being a school record in touchdown catches with 15. Look at the progression, though. Every single year he got better, ended up being a touchdown machine. He's going to be carrying over to our Madden series as well. But just look at him, man. 4 touchdowns to 3 to 4. And then all the way to 15. That is just ridiculous. He was a very good receiver, very reliable as well. I remember in season 1, he couldn't catch the ball at all. Now, Maurice Parks was an interesting freshman receiver. The sky is the limit for him if we would have kept this series going. But 587 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was very good on the outside. JPE was good as well. We didn't really get him the ball a whole lot. I think, if he would have stayed on the right side of the field like Maurice Parks did, I think he would have got the ball a little more often because we did throw to the right a whole lot. And that's the thing, we didn't throw to the left too much, but he still had 600 yards. And you already know his passing career. He was a quarterback turned receiver, and he was actually pretty good as a quarterback. His sophomore year, he did turn the ball over a little bit, and that kind of prompted him to kind of get hurt. He was taking a lot of hits, and then moved over to receiver. Christopher Dalton was pretty much steady for this tight end group, but he did drop a ton of passes. He led us in drop passes throughout this series. And, even more than, you think about Devon Cash, how much he dropped passes his first couple years. Then Brooklyn Santana, a guy that drops a lot of passes. I mean, he was a guy that really did let us down, but he definitely brought us back up with his returns. I mean, he was amazing with his return game. And, one thing about Brooklyn is that, he did not live up to the potential of being a possible like Deshaun Jackson type, but he definitely changed the game. He gave us great field position on a lot of drives. That definitely helped us as well. And I don't regret, not using him as much as a receiver. You saw there was a couple of drop passes, like I believe it was versus South Carolina, where he dropped like a sure touchdown, ended up turning into an interception. That was an interesting drop. I've never seen somebody drop a pass that was wide open running to the end zone. There was nobody in front of him. And then all of a sudden, like, it's an interception. It goes the other way. So our offensive line blocked actually pretty well this year, especially for the run. And then throughout the year, they started to block well for the pass, which was interesting. I was very, very surprised to see that. Barfield did give up 13 sacks, but, that was actually because of, like, a lot of it was because of rolling out, but a lot of it was because our offensive line was pretty bad at blocking for the pass. But we did a good job of balancing the offense, and that definitely helped the pass protection as well. Now, Ralph Clark had an excellent year, 95 tackles, 3.5 sacks. He won the Bednarik and the best linebacker. I mean, he was very good. He got after the quarterback as well with 3.5 sacks when I sent him on a blitz, so that's pretty good production there. Clifton Cobbin, his first starting safety year, he had a pretty good season. He was second in tackles. And then C.J. Miles was so good. I mean, the guy was an slot dominant cornerback. He played on the outside a little bit, but when I moved him back to the slot, he was excellent, and he ended up being an All-American because of it, and was third on the team in tackles. But how about Daniel Pierre? Speaking of tackles, he had 53 total tackles from the defensive tackle position. That is just unheard of. 24 tackles for loss, 10 sacks. I mean, the guy was incredible as a true freshman. I mean, the guy just... He can be one of the greatest players probably in defensive history in one of my series, but obviously we're not keeping it going here. But Daniel Yates had an excellent year. I'm trying to remember back to a season where I had somebody have 15 sacks. Daniel Yates with 15. He was actually a second team All-American, not a first team All-American. He was also a freshman All-American, obviously, but he was excellent. I mean, the guy was unblockable at times, and 15 sacks, I mean, that is just incredible. And then there's the other defensive lineman we had. We brought him in from JUCO. This is Jamar Parker. He was good. He was mostly a run defender, so it was a good balance that we had up front. We obviously won a lot of games with our front, but our secondary was definitely kind of disappointing at times. Like Kevin Knox gave up a ton of big plays. And one thing about him, he took a huge step back. I mean, he had one interception this year, and I don't know what happened. I think he just was adjusting to losing Vincent Youngblood on the outside, and that kind of hurt his performance. And maybe he was being hidden a little bit from, Youngblood's great play throughout this series, the first 3 seasons. And then Chase Rollins, he played in the nickel a lot, and whenever we had 4 DBs, he was at 4th defensive back. He also rotated in with safety. He kind of took a step back, but Clifton Cobbin was a pretty good safety, and we played him in certain situations more than we played Chase Rollins. Now, looking at our kicking game, we did not have to kick a ton of kicks, but when we did, we actually did pretty well. 20 of 23. We had a 52-yarder. Only missed 1 extra point. I'm pretty sure that was just a sim that we did. We sim kick sometimes just to get through it. And then we punted quite a few times as well. We punted 35 times and 10 inside the 20-yard line. Now, we did break a few records. Jeffrey Johnson actually ended up breaking the passing touchdown record in the season, and then Rochford broke it 2 years ago for yards with 3,009. And then we also broke the school record in receiving touchdowns in a career and season, both going to Devon Cash, so congrats to him. Austin Duke pretty much has every receiving record there is at Charlotte. And then looking at career sacks, we probably would have had that with Daniel Yates. The career record's only 20, but Yates had 15 in a season. That's a record. And then Gary Anderson had 2 years ago 4 sacks in a game. And Gary Anderson was a whole lot of fun. I was hoping I would get his little brother Ken Anderson, who went to Arizona State, but that did not happen. And then rushing records, Terrence Pitt Howard had 46 in his career. Very, very good for him. And then he had the most in a season as well with yards, 1,572. He had an excellent career. Now, looking at our team rankings, we were actually one of the highest scoring offenses, at least with total yards goes. But that was because we played 3 additional games more than any other team. Other than that, we would have been probably in the middle of the pack somewhere. But sacks, we ended up being second in the country behind Virginia Tech, who didn't even play in the playoffs, and they still led by 2 sacks. We actually did lead in fumble recoveries. We were 5th. We're actually tied for 4th here. And then we are actually 1st in penalties, which is actually very, very good. We were a very disciplined team. So for those wondering how we did in the future season here, in the next season, Keith Patterson, our defensive coordinator, left for the head coach job at Nevada, and then Iowa got our offensive coordinator, Scotty Montgomery. So both of our coordinators did leave for new jobs. And then going into next season, it was not pretty. We went 2-10 after pretty much bringing back everybody. I think the one guy we did not bring back was Terrence Pitt Howard, and we did not do well at all. A lot of these losses were close, but some were blowouts, like 0-41 to Miami. And then we also got blown out by Clemson 42-14. But this was a very down season, and I guess we struck gold at the right time. And these are the stats here for that next season. Enzi Labata didn't even reach 700 yards rushing. He had 7 touchdowns. JPE went over 1,000 yards. And it looks like Maurice Parks went for another 400-yard season. That's about what he had last season. And then sack-wise, you can just see Daniel Yates led us in sacks, but only 3.5. So we definitely took a step back on defense. And then DC Raymond ended up winning the Heisman Trophy. And once again, for the second straight year, he will get that award. 3,400 yards. He'll probably end up with more touchdowns because his team is in the college football playoff. They are the number 3 seed. You can see right here. They probably will either drop or rise a little bit because they were in the SEC championship. But that will do it here in this series. I want to thank you guys. I can't thank you guys enough for the support. I actually love that this was kind of a shorter series. A lot of my series go long, and it was kind of a good change to have a shorter series, 4-season series, 50-episode series. I like that. Next series, stay tuned for that. I will have some posts in the community tab about it, and just getting your ideas on it and everything. And I'm going to take a little break from NCAA Football 14. I'm not exactly sold on what my next series is going to be. I'm thinking it's going to be NCAA Basketball 10 again, or it's going to be the PS2 NCAA football. I'm not really sure. I could go a lot of ways. I also want to do an NFL Street Series, so that would be interesting. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. I want to thank you guys for the support in this series. It's been a lot of fun. Hit subscribe, hit that like button. That's going to do it for the Charlotte 49ers. We are champions in Season 4, then take a huge step back in Season 5. But I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned. Let's get it. Let's go.
It's too easy. I've been there, done it, seen it. Boy, all that like Keenan. Still got crack, they fiendin'. Flow still hot like Phoenix. Shine so bright, I'm gleaming. This off top, I'm tweaking. Fresh out the rat like Neiman. And I'm still trying to fight my demons. Cause we all gotta act like Tina. That's why I gotta ride with the Nina. Outside, it's a war going on.